not have seen. Some old school technologies back to the 1700s to some of the new, latest, greatest solar pumps with sophisticated controls. So I like the full spectrum of those. And if you need anything, I do a lot of stuff for people that are preparing for power outages for whatever reason. So I do a lot of hand pumps for wells and solar backup systems for homes. And so we have websites and YouTube videos. If you have trouble sleeping, just watch my YouTube videos. You'll go to sleep in a few minutes. So anyway, but it's been pretty neat. We've had National Geographic here. We've had Sportsman's Guide here. A lot of different shows I've been a part of in the last couple of years. So I've had a lot of film crews here, which I don't recommend that to anybody. So reality TV is not fun. But anyway, it was a neat experience. I won't do it again. But what I want to talk about tonight is water. Finding water. Think about your farms. What sources of water do you have? Do you have springs? Do you have wells, creeks, ponds? And how do you best utilize that water source? And how do you find water? Do you need to get a hydrogeologist? There, Lee Mitchell. Does anybody know Lee? Lee Mitchell is a hydrogeologist. People want to. You might look at your farm and say, "I don't really think I have enough water," or "Where do I drill a well?" There are smart places to drill a well, and there are places that aren't so smart. The well drillers are going to come up with their $1 million rig, and they're not going to want to go to where the water is. They're going to want to go to where their truck will go. So there's always that back and forth of getting them to drill a well in the right spot. Fortunately, in Pickens County, pretty much anywhere you drill, you're going to get water. The question is, how much water are you going to get? So it's very important that if you do a well, whether it's through the NRCS program or just on your own, that you drill in the right spot. So it's important. And I'm a big fan of wells because your water is controlled. It's your water. It's clean. You don't have to filter it typically in Pickens County. And so then if you take advantage of a well, you'll have plenty enough water to handle all of your livestock forever. So I've been experimenting with 15 to 20 brood cows for about 20 years using a very small 1 gallon a minute solar pump. And it's always been able to stay ahead of my cows no matter what. So a couple 65-watt solar panels. The name of the game is make hay while the sun shines. Pump water when the sun is shining, store it, and it's always there for distribution. I don't use batteries in any of my systems because that's a weak point. So it's usually direct drive solar is what I'm gonna show you. And then my favorite device, the ram pump. Some of you, who has a ram pump here? Anybody have a hydraulic ram pump in the crowd? I bet your parents did. Somebody, does anybody? The ram pumps were how farmers moved water in the 1800s. When the electricity came out, they just became obsolete. But they were invented in the late 1700s, and they're a fantastic way to move water for free, no power. I know a lot of people when they sign up for NRCS programs to get water to their marathons or whatever, they run city water, which drives me crazy. You end up running city water, and if you've done that, then I'm sorry. There's better ways to do that. And you can control your own water source. So if the power ever goes out, I like to know that I can always water my cows, take care of my family here with my own water source, and not have to depend on pump stations or not having to deal with the chemicals coming in the city water. So anyway, what I want to do, when I moved here, all my water was below me. I'm like, some people are very fortunate that if you have a spring that's above you, no farmer would ever buy a piece of property and build up on a hill, right? You'd never build on a hill. All the water was gravity fed down to the dairy barn, or the water came to that. He would never, before electricity, build above your water source. Water would come to you. So if you're fortunate to have gravity fed water, that's an awesome thing, but not many people have that. So then what do? We either have a well where we got to pump the water up, a spring where we got to deliver it, and talking to a gentleman who's got water that he wants to lift 100 to 150 feet up. So we can do that. We can lift water 800. I've lifted water 800 feet straight up, miles, using solar pumps. We have ram pumps that'll lift water 500 feet straight in the air if you've got enough fall. So what I want to do, instead of me talking the whole time, is show you some things. Again, we're kind of at the top of my property. If you kind of come over here, there's a tank up on the hill. That's the highest point on my property. There's 55 acres here. And I always recommend, if you're going to do this in any way, that you always put your tank at the highest point. You'll never regret putting your water at the highest point. When I first started doing this, I made the mistake of buying a cheap white polyethylene tank. Don't ever buy a white tank. Why?
Algae.
Algae. You fight algae for the rest of your life, or for the rest of the tank's life. So I did that, and I pulled that out of there because I got tired of that. So I usually do a dark green tank. That's a 1,050-gallon tank. And one of the neat things going through the NRCS program and helping other farmers get water, we typically tend to oversize things. We oversize our waters, we oversize our tanks, and I think, you know, what's the most important thing when it comes to herd health? To me, I'm kind of partial. I think it's water, that they have good quality water. Now, I'm going to get scolded by some of you guys that are good farmers. My brood cows are 18, 19 years old, and they're still having calves. I know that's bad, but I attribute it to good water, that they've always had good natural spring water. It's always been clean. And what you don't want to do is have, you've got this great water source, but then you bring it into a container, whether it's a Rubbermaid container or some sort of water, and then what does that turn into? A nice frog pond within a few weeks. You don't want to do that because now you're hurting the cows, because you're introducing algae and bacteria into the herd. So you want to have a small of water. You want no sunlight to get at your water. So there's no sunlight getting into that tank. There's no sunlight getting into the waters. I love the Mirafont ball type waters. Anybody have those? I think Johnny does, Newell does, George. So if you've switched over, I used to have the Rubbermaids with the Hudson valves. Always fun freezing and breaking. But to have those ball type waters, and the cows learn within a day or two how to deal with those, and you train them, and they're no problem. They're thirsty, they learn fast. But it's just nice to take that water from its source. Like for a spring, I want to show you spring. How many people have springs on your property? How many people are using your springs for your cows? A couple of you. Have you developed a spring? I want to show you a new way to develop a spring that's real reasonable, under $300. You can buy all the equipment. There's old school ways to do it, and there's some new neat stuff. I've got them in the shop. You know, just a gallon a minute is how much a day? It's 1,440 gallons of water a day, just having 1 gallon a minute spring. So you can do a lot with a spring. They're kind of my favorite because it's coming out of the ground. So you've invested no energy, no electricity, no power to get that water out of the ground. There it is. Now what do I do with it? Let's get it delivered up to a tank. On mine, I put a flag. I got a little float, so I know my system's working good. I got a little red flag up there, so from my house I can kind of peek out there and know my pump's working because my flag's up. So it's just a simple float check, so I know that everything's good. So I don't have to go down and look at my solar pump or look at the solar panels. I can just come out here and say everything's good. So I don't get behind, because if it's down and the cows don't have any water, then you got problems. So what I want to do, and this is kind of a pain for all of us to walk, I mean, I don't mind, is walking down and looking at a ram pump, spring pump, because the sun's gone down. You're not going to hear things screaming away as they do during the day. So if you ever want to come back and see the pump actually working, when the sun goes down, my pump stops. So I haven't been able to figure out how to run them by moonlight yet. But the neat thing about solar water pumping, I start pumping at like 9 in the morning and we'll pump to about now. So there's just this bell curve of tremendous amount of water pumping all day long. Solar has come down quite a bit. You can get solar, most people can get solar for less than $1 a watt now. So it doesn't take much to move a lot of water all day long into your waters. And then from that tank, I gravity feed the whole 55 acres. Down through creeks, up, they've got about 6,500 feet of trenching all over the place. I like trenchers. And you gotta like trenchers if you do what I do. You're just always up in the woods and trenching lines in. But I got Mirafonts in different places and some old waters, and then I overflow. The other thing is when that tank is full, when that tank is satisfied and all the waters are satisfied, I overflow that tank and it dumps back in my pond. You don't have to do that. I just do a little bit. It keeps that tank absolutely fresh. So that's well watered in that tank. The other tanks I'll show you are spring water. So there's sources. I got pond water, spring water, and well water separated. They can all join together. And then my chickens are fed watered automatically with a ram pump because I'm lazy and I don't want to have to water them. So they get watered every day by the mechanical pump. And the cows are done by solar. So before we head down, does anybody have any questions? We want to go down and look at some pumps, look at some wells. Any questions? All right, let's head. We're going to go that way. We're going to look at the pond, the wells, the springs. If you got any questions, about 250 to 300 feet according to Lee and Sims. Lee and Sims drilled this. There's a couple other well drillers I like working with, Lee and Sims. We got a pretty good relationship because I put in hand pumps for people, and I think I'm over about 260 of these now, and that went on me. See how good I am? I'll stand over here. But these pumps are great. I put the hand pumps in, can go in alongside your existing submersible pump, then I can go down to 325 feet and get water. So if you think, you remember grandma's pitcher pump, how far can you go down to get water with that? Anybody know? 25 feet, about 26 feet if it's really good. Theoretically, you can only suck water from 33 feet. So I don't care how many horsepower you throw at the pump, you cannot suck water like through a straw because you pull a vacuum and then you're done. You can't get water up. So what we do is we put a piston down into the water at least 30, 40 feet, so you're guaranteed to have water. The nice thing about this pump is that I can backfeed and tie it in to the house and pressurize the bladder tank if power goes off, so you still have water. You can still, send the kids out and tell them to pump this thing up, and you can still have a shower. So it works pretty good that way. The other thing, these two solar panels are, you saw the green tank on the hill. I wanted you to see that. These panels supply the power to fill that tank 2 times over every day. So there's a solar pump that's in the well along with this. I put 4 pumps in a well. It's kind of a pain, but you can stack them at different heights. And I get these caps machined to accept the wires and the pump types. So you can put in a 6 1/4 inch casing, which is the standard for South Carolina above Columbia. You can put multiple pumps in a well. So usually I don't mess, if somebody's already got a pump in there, I don't mess with that at all. I'll go and I'll put a solar submersible in parallel. Just did one in Pendleton where left their Franklin pump alone, so their house and everything was normal. Put a solar pump on top of that, and then put a hand pump in with that as well. So they gave them multiple ways to run their farm. Basically they're running off of solar now. So the 2 solar panels supply the power through a controller, which is on the back. If you walked around the back, you'd see the LEDs on that control low water sensors, float switches. You can get pretty sophisticated with it. But off the tank, this is basically the pressure coming off of that tank on the hill. So it's not a lot, but it's more than you need to do anything. You run your house. Obviously, when you're watering cattle, you just need to have your tank above your water. You don't need to get fancy as long as you got enough, the pipe size is right, and you got enough volume to handle the number of cows drinking at once on a hot day.
How many feet is that from there down to here?
It's 900. Oh, elevation?
Yeah, elevation.
It is 92 feet. This is, well, I'll tell you. Well, that pressure gauge isn't working. So you take the pressure gauge times 2.31, and that tells you the exact elevation. But I can also, feed. It's a very easy pump. This thing pumps 5 gallons a minute, so if you might not want to do this for your cows all day long, but if you, I got a lady in Minnesota, I'm doing she wanted a backup hand pump for her dairy farm, and they lose power a lot, so she wanted a backup hand pump and a solar piston pump, and so that's what we're making sure. She's like, I've got to milk my cow, I got to have water for my cows. And she called me, she said they had 6-7 feet of snow on the ground. I'm like, we've got to have water, and they didn't have power. So gave them some good mechanical backups to what they had, so she was pretty happy. So standard well, nothing fancy, can do a lot with it. Solar pump, you can size it to pump up to 25 gallons a minute. There's no reason to oversize. This is a moderately sized system for any well in Pickens County. It'll pump more water than you'll ever use. And again, this trench, you can kind of see where it's kind of washed out here. My overflow, I've got 2 1-inch PVC pipes, and this one's 1,300 feet, and it overflows back to the pond. And so that just keeps that tank fresh all the time. Also have generator backups if things fail, and if pipe breaks or bull breaks the water, and that's kind of doesn't look too good, but I can take a little Honda generator, plug it in. It's a little transfer switch, so guarantee there's many ways that you can get water. So solar's priority, but if there's no solar power and the generator's plugged in, then the generator will run the submersible pump, so you're guaranteed to have water. But no batteries. The beauty of the system is there's absolutely no batteries. It's cheaper to store water in a tank than it is to store electricity in a battery, and most people kill batteries because they don't understand them. You know, they're not handling the battery right. So a battery that could last 10 years, a lot of people would kill it in about 3. So I don't like to do batteries at all. So this type of system will last a long, long time. Now it's not full, I mean, if this took a direct lightning strike, even though it's grounded and bonded, it could take out the controller. But the reason I went with this style, there's a lot of pumps have all the controls in the pump. And who wants to pull a well pump out when it fails? So this system, the pump is just a motor and a rotor, a helical rotor. The controls are up here. So you can pop 4 screws, pull a board out, and put a new board in. You don't have to pull that out. So I went with a system that was split. So I've got a customer in Missouri, and he said, I'm not driving back out to Missouri. It's a 15-hour drive. I said, you can. So I sent him a board, and he popped it in and out in 10 minutes. So it sure beats having to pull a pump that's sitting down at 250 feet, pulling it out of the well, when you can pop a board in and out. So that's one thing to consider if you ever want to do one of these. So let's go down to, that's a standard commercial well, Lee and Sims. And then the solar panels, you know, they're on a pole mount. Usually they're pretty dirty, but I'm pumping more water than I need to. If you are pumping more than you want, you don't like the overflow, well, you can turn it out of the sun and lock it down. And you can find out for your size herd how much water you actually need. Or you can put a float switch, which I do have a float in that tank. I just haven't wired it in, but when the tank's full, it shuts the pump off. So you got lots of options. Also, if you have a well, I've run into several people that have spent thousands. One guy spent $15,000 on 2 dry holes. Technically, there's still water in the well, but it wasn't producing enough. The DHEC wouldn't have let them hook their house to it. It was only making 30 gallons an hour. But with a solar pump and a timer, you can pump everything that well produces. I just got back from Georgia, put a pump and system like this in Georgia, and the guy was so happy. He was almost crying because he spent $8,000 on the well, and the guy said it's no good. You just can't do anything with it. He was, you know, he only had 4 acres. What can I do? I said, you can put one of these in for a timer. So he's got same tank full of water, and through 2.5 days, pumps everything the well will produce. But you know, DHEC would say that well's no good. It's absolutely fine. So there's ways around that with just a series of float switches and a solar pump. Save a lot of money.
What's the cost of
This,
the man in Georgia?
well, how much was the
The
system?
man in Georgia, if he had 4 acres, what's the cost of that system like you?
It's $250,000. See if I get a reaction out of anybody.
Should we all turn around?
Yeah.
I think everything I think it was 4,300. That's just a
But he had
pump.
already spent 15,000, right?
No, he spent 8,000 on it as well. Yeah, when the tank and everything, he was probably closer. When I got done, it was probably at 7. It was like 7. But that's with a booster pump for his house as well. I think it's right at 7. Every system's different. Depends on the lift, how much solar, how many panels, and all of that. So, okay, let's go down to the next one. It's on down. It's about to die. There's just not enough. Somebody was asking about aerating their pond. This is just an experiment I was working on this week, and I'm going to get a real compressor. But this thing makes a lot of air like crazy all day long. It's been running for like 4 days, but there's not enough sun to run it. But I made a little pad. My pond, as you can see, is not in good shape because it's. I put a lot of catfish in it, and it's just getting to that point where the pond goes through a life cycle, and if you don't aerate it enough and you don't kill off the weeds, you're going to have a fish kill. So I know a lot of you have ponds, and but there is solar direct drive aeration. This is just a homemade job. And so that's another thing to consider. And the best thing to do is I got a PEX ring with about 100 holes in it at the bottom of the pond. It just bubbles up through, and that's what you want to do. You want to get that pond to turn over. You want to break through that thermocline. So anyway, forget the aeration. This is a well. I've got a hand auger kit that I can drill by hand about 75 feet, and it's like an Amish barn raising. You need a lot of people to do it, but it's kind of fun. And it's an auger, and it's got 3-foot sections. I've drilled wells in Nicaragua, and I've done 8 in the upstate. And like I said, DHEC I said, can I do this? Can I drill my own well? And they're like, you can't drill your well. I don't believe that you're drilling your own well. And I said, well, I'm drilling them. And he said, well, that's a $5,000 a day fine. And so the guy came up from DHEC to find me, and he showed me the correct way and I showed him what I was doing. So basically this is just an auger. It's like a fence post auger, and you just keep putting sections on a T-handle and you just work it, and I can do about 20 feet in 3 hours. But I just stuck, this is just a pipe with a check valve just to show you, and a couple of Black Widows. But that's about as simple of a, that's just a pipe, that's just a piece of pipe with a swing check valve on the bottom. So if you need to get water out of the ground, you can do that. That's about $5 pump. So you can build your own there. So that's about as cheap as you can get. But you could put a pitcher pump on this. But we dug down, and the deepest I've gone is 70 feet by hand. But that is work. When you start pulling that thing out of there, it's real heavy. And
how deep is that one, Scott?
This one's only 25. But I kind of did that as a test hole, and that's why I drilled there. I knew what my static water level was here, and I kind of said, well, then I know what my static water level is going to be in there. Because the static water level is the distance from on the ground down to the top of the water in the well. People always tell me, my well's 500 feet deep, my well's 300 foot deep. It doesn't matter how deep your well is. Your well could go to China, but if your water is high, it's less money. That's why you want to get a well company to drill down in a draw. If you look at the topo map of your property, if you can go into the low areas, like down in a bowl, just as the rain, you watch the rain on property fall, and where does the water go to? That's where you want to drill. Then the argument becomes, how do I get that well guy to go down in there? And I've gotten Lee and Sims stuck several times. They don't like me. I said, we really got to put the well down there. Sure enough, he gets stuck and he gets real mad at me. But you get so much more water. You know, the same well, same cost. You drill it up there and you get 5 gallons a minute. You drill it down here, you get 30 to 40 gallons a minute. It's a huge difference if you have a lot of farming going on and you've got that recovery rate. Plus, you get a lower static water level. See, I wanted the ability to put a suction pump, and I can put a suction pump on that because my static water level is at 22 feet. So I don't have to put a pump in the well. I can put a Myers, I think Newell has an old Myers piston pump. Some of the old school piston pumps will suck the water out of a well if the water level is less than 25 foot from the ground. But that's the debate you got to get into with the well driller. Okay, let's go down and look at a ram pump. So we started with modern technology. We started with the latest, greatest in solar pumps, and now we're going to go back to the 1700s down here. 1997, it's been running ever since. I've installed it in a bunch of different locations, just playing around. This has pumped a lot of water. This pumps about 1,600 gallons a day. People don't understand how it works. You need falling water. This won't work for a well. So you need water that is falling. This is 12 foot from the top of my pond. The reason I dug my pond was not for fish, it was for a ram pump. So everything has to go back to pumps for me. But the pond's very enjoyable to have too. But I needed elevation in order to lift. I needed to lift this water up to the top of my property. From here to the very top of my property is roughly 120 feet from this point. When I go down, I get 140 is my max elevation change. This pump will pump 250 feet straight in the air. You got to have enough volume coming in, and you got to have enough fall. So this thing works. It works like a human heart, like a 2-valve heart. You got your veins and arteries got to have the right amount of back pressure, or your valves stop working. Okay, and that's the way this thing works. It's an awesome pump invented by the gentleman who invented the hot air balloon back in 1797. And this is an automatic ram pump, fully adjustable. We got counterweights. You can adjust this thing to 140 beats per minute, or you can adjust it to 40 beats per minute. And the slower it beats, the more water it pumps. It might seem backwards, but using the weight, this weight on this waste valve. When that valve closes, what's happening when that closes, it's a pressure spike and the water wants to back up. Well, some of it shoots through a check valve that comes inside this dome. This dome, if it gets waterlogged, it won't pump either. So you see this little valve spitting? It's called a snifter. And if that snifter is adjusted right on each stroke, it lets air come in that dome, so you have that compressible air space. And that makes it run smooth. So basically it's just 2 check valves going back and forth, non-stop, 60 beats a minute, and just builds pressure. And you can get this thing to, if I shut this down and kind of simulate a higher pressure, she'll start doing some funky things, but she'll start building pressure. For those over here can see this gauge going up, I got a pressure gauge on here, and she'll start building, doing weird things. And she'll build so far, she'll pull the pipe apart and out of the dam. So we're not going to let her do that. But this thing will start shaking because it'll just hammer. So it'll typically lift 10 times higher than the fall. That's easy. So 12 foot of fall, 120 foot lift is a piece of cake. If you adjust it right, see, it's starting to really build now. We're at 80 psi, which is 180 times 2.31. You're 190 foot right now. It's lifting water. And it's starting to make noises, so we're going to not break it today. We'll let it go back to it. I always put a ball valve on there because they hammer and they destroy everything. But once it's set up, it runs automatically. Even if you try to stop it, she's still gonna want to run because the back pressure. Most people get so frustrated with these because they don't have enough back pressure, and it takes about 50 times to get enough. You get this thing, if you get water about 40 foot up, then it'll start working automatically and then run forever. I've rebuilt it once, about 6 gaskets in it. Didn't have to, I just wanted to take it apart and put it back together, and I painted it. It's almost been running for 18 years. So they're an awesome perpetual motion machine. For every 8 gallons of water that comes down from your source, it pumps 1 gallon. So people say, well, you're wasting all the water. No, it's just running back into the creek where it was going to go anyway. So it's not really wasting anything. If you're in, it's about as green as you can get. There's no power being used. And 1,600 gallons of water goes up to my chickens, so they're very hydrated.
Any other maintenance?
What's that?
Any other maintenance?
No maintenance. I run this through the winter. I've got same pump up in Maggie Valley, and it gets a lot colder in Maggie than it does here. And he's just running through the winter. I run this through the winter, and this little thing, it spits out water, so you have these awesome ice sculptures all over. They just keep spitting water. As long as that water's moving, it doesn't freeze. So I've got one in Virginia. That's about pushing it. You can get to a point where you will freeze and bust it. But for the most part around here, I can run it through the winter. It doesn't just completely exposed. In really cold climates, you have to put them in a pit. You got to bury them. But as long as she's doing that, she's fine. Now behind you, I've got a Clemson. It's kind of buried in the leaves. If you go to Clemson's website, they have a ram pump that you can build. These are about $2,300, believe it or not. When I bought this, it was $800. It's $2,300 now. And this is a double acting ram. Newell was asking about it. This pump will pump. This is what I consider groundwater, dirty water. I wouldn't drink it. But you can feed in spring water. I got this machine to accept spring water in the bell, and the waters will not mix. So you can actually, if you have a spring, but it doesn't have enough energy to run the ram, you use your dirty water to run the ram and pump your spring water into your house. So you can actually do this. It's called double acting ram. Was invented the late 1860s when they did the double acting ram. So yeah, there are a lot of cities that were going to do all their water pumping was going to be on hydraulic ram pumps. And then electricity came out, and these things kind of just got put in barns, hidden. People are like, what is that? So these are awesome. They're kind of mesmerizing. So you're all in a trance now. You're just kind of looking, watching this thing. Yes, sir.
Do you have any kind of filtration where the water comes
No,
in?
I do have a, yes, great question. I have a PVC pipe about 4 foot long with a bunch of holes drilled in it. Because the first time I had problems with this, I said, why is this thing not working? I take it all apart and it really stunk really bad. There was a fish jammed up in the, and it was pretty nasty. But yeah, you got to do some filtration coming in, but it's pretty forgiving. It doesn't need any fine filter. Just drill a bunch of holes in a pipe.
So you pump it up to your chicken.
Yeah.
Where does it go?
It comes back down.
It comes back
Yeah.
back into the
Yeah, it just comes back. I just do loops everywhere. So every time I put in a pump, this is a great question, where does the water go? I put in 2 lines, whether it's a solar pump that I have in my spring, solar pump in the well, or a ram pump, I always put in 2 lines. So I have a return, or if one fails, I don't want to trench again, I'll use that one line. So I always drop in another line. It's cheap, it's a pain to go back and fix it. So I've got 3 sets of double lines going to the top of the hill, and then it gravity feeds everywhere, and then I can switch from ram water to spring water to well water. But these are awesome. You can build one. What I was saying, about $150. But the Clemson design will only lift about 65 feet. They use a swing check valve, and the flapper in a swing check doesn't have enough weight. You got to have this weight to do the work. Every time that's lifting that weight, and a swing check just doesn't have the weight And so a lot of people get frustrated when they build that Clemson design, saying, why can't I lift? I got to go 100 feet. You got to change it. I put a spring check, and you can see I got a bunch of weights on that one there. You can modify a spring check valve, put some washers and nuts on it just to weight it. And that'll pump about half as much as this up there. But these are awesome. They're fully adjustable. You can adjust the rest, you can adjust the weight, you can adjust the snifter, and you can tune it in where it won't. You can do it, you can kick it, do whatever you want to. It's still going to run. It just runs. These? Yeah, I'm actually a dealer for these. So I'm going to keep talking until somebody buys one. No, I'm just kidding.
250,000 up on the hill.
That was just to break the ice. No, the smallest one is 1.25 inches. This is 2 inch. They go up to 8 inch. So you can do an 8-inch ram that'll move. I get one for a guy in Mexico. It's just moving a tremendous amount of water. They go from 1,800 up. This is about a $2,200–$2,300 pump. That's very expensive, but this thing, it'll last forever. Basically, last forever and move 15 to 2,000. Depending on how you adjust it, I could get 2,000 gallons of water a day, no electricity. Long term, I think it's very worth it. Okay. But you can come down this path here if you want to. Yeah, just don't walk over there. No, go back up the hill. Sorry, I'll block that. I just got some valves and some things in here that I need to protect a little better. First thing I did when I moved here was put this spring in, and I didn't know what I was doing. And I got Boone Chris to get the backhoe down here and just start digging like mad. And if you dug out a spring, it's just a ton of water in here. Anytime you see, like look behind the white pines, just huge. When you see big trees on the property like that, tulip poplars, of course, you know you're plugged into water. Obviously you see water, and what I ended up doing is getting 3 of these, there's 3 deep, one on top, and so there's like 700 gallons of spring water there all the time. So I got a solar pump in here, and I wish I could, the sun's down, hit that little breaker. Can you see that breaker all the way over? Just turn that up. Hear that? It's just enough energy. It's clicking away. It's just there's no sunlight, so usually this thing's going zzz, and it's moving about 2 gallons a minute up the hill. Direct drive, again, no batteries.
Where's the panel?
The panels are way over. You know the hand dug well? Those are the panels that run this pump. So 500 feet away.
Wow, no voltage.
265 watt BP solar panels. So it doesn't take a lot. It's the most efficient use of solar energy, and there's a lot of talk of solar. Solar water pumping is the most efficient use of solar. Please don't walk in there. You're light. You're probably okay.
Yep.
If I walk in there, everything will just break.
What size wire did you have to?
Number 8.
8.
Yeah.
I was going to say.
Because you get a lot of voltage drop. Yeah. So you got to take into account voltage drop, how high you're lifting. I'm pumping 100. So you can see the pump is turning right now, but it's 135 foot of lift. But I've had this pump in here for 6 years. You can put a submersible in it, but this is just a surface pump. It's just it's called a slow pump. It pumps slow and steady. It pumps all day long and moves a lot of water. Roughly 1,800 gallons a day I pump up to a tank. That overflows back to here. So I just have water running in a loop. That is a pre-filter on that. If you put that pre-filter on there, these pumps will last about 10 to 15 years. So that's pretty good out of a pump that's running every day and pumping 2,000 gallons a day. I've changed every 6 months. So anyway, so springs that you want to, if you're, I mentioned the digging it out with a backhoe. If you have a spring, you don't want to bring a machine in. You don't want to bring the track hoe in and start digging. Oh, I'm going to dig this thing out, because spring will go places you don't want it to go. So all the spring development I do now is by hand, all hand work. And behind me, there's a spring developed here. There's enough water in here where I got this developed. See that little green box down there? I don't know if you can see the water running out. Please tell me there's water running out, Eli.
Yep.
Okay.
When I checked in the box, there's definitely water running out.
Yeah, I measured about 1,000 gallons a day is coming out of that little spring box. Now, the old school spring boxes were buildings with screens, and people put their milk and butter and cheese and stuff in them. This is a little different. There's a collection system where I found the spring head by hand, and I'll show it to you in my shop. There's a dam and a collection system in gravel, and so it's completely buried. You don't see it, and then it pipes down to a spring box, which is a secondary sediment catch. And the water that comes out of there is super nice, good quality. So you have pre-filtration, it's doing a little bit more sediment catch there, and then you could take that and either capture it in a tank and then pump it up the hill, or just if it's high enough on your property, you could gravity feed it to the cows right out of that system. So I did one for a gentleman up in Maggie Valley. His is flowing, he does about 6,500 gallons a day out of that spring. That's usually enough to handle any herd that anybody has here, I would think. So this is a great simple system that you can do, but don't bring a machine in. You just want to capture that spring head. I've got videos on YouTube how to do this step by step, part 1, part 2, part 3. I think I got a 4-part video on how to develop a spring. So any questions on springs? Again, they're easy to find. You find them by just, there's water there. Just don't bring in the backhoe, because you could potentially mess it up. But a side hill spring is the easiest to develop. It's when you get into a low area, that's harder. But we've done that too. Then you get the backhoe, track hoe out, and you shelve in and you dig a well. You're basically digging a well with a machine, and then you can set pipes down or smaller well type 8-inch culverts or whatever. And then you can make a well out of it. There's a lot of different ways to handle that. So, any questions about springs? But you could, like I'm 500 feet away. Obviously when you find a spring, a lot of times you're in the woods, there's no solar. So just take the solar to where you have solar or clear a spot. I've gone as far as 700 feet away from the source with solar panels, running a well and pumping back up 300 feet in elevation, 600-700 feet away. But you can move water wherever you want it to move, as long as you do a good job of developing the source. This has worked great. What I don't like about this is it's all done in one shot. There's no really filtration. There's no pre-filtration, which this system gives you 2 levels of filtration before you start pumping the water. So the water coming out of there is super clean compared to here. Still good spring water. All right, let's go that way. Yeah, you can leave it on.
It's going to power the light bulbs.
I was determined to try to make electricity somehow off of this pond. So I got a low head turbine I put in here. So hopefully she'll start spinning. She's starting to pull a vacuum now. So I go 8-inch to 10-inch pipe, and once that 10-inch pipe is full, and you see all the air coming out of the bottom, it takes 1,200 gallons a minute through the turbine. So it's starting to crank now. Don't look at all my straps. I know it looks like a total redneck situation here. But, this actually makes 120 horsepower. I can run any tool, come down here, grinders, whatever I can run. So that's 300 watts. Shut it down. That'll fill it. But the neat thing, I brought a grinder down here. The startup amperage, it had so much momentum it started it right up, so no problem. But this is an inverter. It's like in your Honda generators have an inverter in them, an inverter generator. So that's taking a 3-phase AC power off of that low head turbine and making 120 volt pure sine wave, just like house power. You can plug any tool. I call this my pawn shop down here. I can do some work, but anyway. So there's a lot of places where you can make electricity, because a lot of people say, can I make electricity off my stream, off my pond? Yeah, that makes about 600 watts an hour. Now, I have a very small pond, and it's spring fed, so I can run 4 hours, make 2,400 watts, and then I've dropped it about 2.5 feet. So it pumps a lot of water through. But there's a lot of ways we've made power. If you got a stream on your property you think you can make electricity with, just let me know. And this might not be the way to do it, or it might. You might not want to have something so ugly on your piece of property. When I get bored, I dig through the dam. It's all hand dug. The ram pump inlet is over there. You can kind of see the white pipe that sticks in. Yeah. So just like I just drilled 1,000,000 holes in that with a drill, I did the same with the filter. So the ram's coming in here.
Yeah.
So
you can see it better from over here.
So the energy that runs the ram is from this height down to the ram. It's roughly 12 feet. And that's all she needs. She doesn't need that much. 5 foot is enough. But the more drop you have, the better. All right, we better head up or RD's going to be... What's that? So it's another... it's not the goal. The other thing you can do, a lot of us have barns, got barns with metal roofs. You can't beat that for catching rainwater. 1 inch of rainwater, well, 2,000 square foot building, 1 inch of rain is 1,000 gallons of water. So you can, off of this 1,200 square foot, I can get 700 gallons in an inch of rain. So what I like to do is, basically I capture everything that falls on this roof. And this is good for cows too. You can take it to chickens, your hogs, your cows, whatever. But I have gutter guard on there that's matched for oak leaves. You can get them for pine needles. And so what the key to rain catcher, if you ever do this, is this. Is you see the tubes on either end. Those are called first flush diverters. So when it first rains, it rinses off your roof, rinses the gutters, and all that crud goes in the first flush diverter. Before you capture any of the water, rinse your roof, rinse your gutters, and you'll pull out a cow pie out of this thing. It's so nasty. And that water you don't want going in your final tank. And so that works fantastic. But you want to do a first flush diverter. North American Rain Harvesting up in Lyman has the kit. It's like 35 bucks. You buy your own PVC. So it doesn't take much money to build a nice rain harvesting system. A lot of people just run their water from their downspout into a tank, and you get a nasty tank of water in no time. So first flush diversion's a must. Leaf guard is a must. And then you come, basically I'm capturing all that into here, and then I got a peat trap in here like a toilet. You come here and look at some of these goodies. So when the water comes up, it actually skims off most of the pollen and bugs that get in there. It actually skims, when the water comes in here, it skims it and flushes it out. So anything that floats, it takes and dumps it out of there. And then if I'm pulling the water, I pull the water using a floating extractor. The cleanest area in a rain tank is 4 inches from the top. You don't want to pull the water off the bottom, you don't want to pull the water off the top, you pull it from 4 inches down. And so you can hook that to a pump, which I have in the barn here, a pump, so you can actually, I've got this thing so you can drink the water on the other end through a ceramic filter. But you don't have to do that for livestock. You can just, you can run it in a pickle barrel and run it out to the cows if you want to. But if you want to get fancy, it doesn't cost much to do a nice rain catchment system. We're very blessed, we're very fortunate we have all the water we do. People in California would die for what we have for water. But we waste a lot of it. You can do a lot with just rain. You can live off, the reason I did this, I wanted to show people you could live off a 1,200 square foot home. Whatever fell on the roof in Pickens County, you get 55 inches of rain a year, easily catch 140 gallons a day. You could live off of your roof. Is the reason that I did this. And there's other hand pumps. This is a neat little hand pump. It's a bilge pump. It'll build 40 psi. Plenty of pressure. So got a lot of stuff for when the power goes out, which it doesn't go out very often for us. But if you do, there's many ways you can take the water and pressurize it and deliver it wherever you want to. So
Clean those downspouts, you clean those out?
I do, okay, yes, especially when the springtime with the pollen.
Yeah.
Seasonally, definitely pollen is you clean them out. You do. Oh, okay.
You just fill that up first before your water starts going in the tank.
Okay. Good question. Sorry, I'm going fast. I know I'm limited on time. When it starts raining, you'll hear the water coming in this thing and the ball will start rising up. It's got an emitter in here that the rain stays ahead of it. This one's a 0.25 micron. It's got a hole in there. So basically this thing resets itself. So after it stops raining, this thing's still peeing out water. Okay. And it just drains that hole. Okay. That tube drains and resets you ready for the next rain. And then you got the filter there. But this ball just keeps going, and there's a cup in that tee. It's just a standard Schedule 40 tee, but there's a cup that comes with this kit. The kit is this, the ball, and that cup. Just plugs in there, so this thing seats in there. So that keeps a lot of the floating stuff down in this. And so then just the good water goes into your tank.
And that's enough right there to clean everything off. The volume in that pipe.
There is a volume calculation.
Okay.
There's a volume calculation for the volume of this for the size of your roof. So that's, you know, and they have it from dirty roof to clean roof to, you know, if it's out in the open, it's not getting, you know, mold and stuff on it or debris from the trees, then you can have a cleaner roof.
Yeah.
So you can take these, and I've done it before, where you just take 1, 2, 3 to a 2500. I just did that, where you can just tee in, and so it fills up the first one, then it fills up the second, then it fills up the third before it takes the water. So you can do all your volume that way. It gets kind of crazy cost-wise to step this up to 6-inch PVC and then neck it down. It's just kind of easier just to do the 4-inch. But yeah, you got to have the volume match the rinse of the roof. So come on inside here. Run a farm, but it'll build 50-60 psi, and it's just a leather cup piston in here, crankshaft. You can get every single part fully. I rebuilt this. This pump's 22 years old. You can get every part for it. Runs off of solar, runs off battery. You can do whatever you want there. There's a lot of DC motors. This is what you couldn't see in the spring down there. If a lot of you didn't see that, this was just hanging in there. Had an intake and an outlet. Direct drive from solar 500 feet away. Newell, you are a popular gentleman. I talk about the well caps I get machined to put in a hand pump, wires, existing pump, and then a solar pump. So just get a custom made to whatever you want to do with your project. And then the ram pumps, as you saw, this is a little bit smaller. This is a next size smaller ram than the one that's down there, but this is actually, it's only 2 years old. That's a new ram. What else can I show you? There's a lot of gadgets and gizmos I don't want to bore you to death with, but there's a lot of tricks to make pumps work in low lighting condition. This little gizmo will allow this pump to pump 50% more water. It's called a linear current booster. So when the sun comes up, it takes the voltage, turns it into amperage, and makes this thing pump. It's absolutely amazing. But it's called a linear current booster, and it will pump 50% more water in a day.
This thing should freeze. Do these pop? Don Jameson's got one that these boats will pop.
Yeah, they'll pump, but they are grade 8. So you're really messing around. I have broke grade 8, but this, you know, you wouldn't think, but those grade 8 bolts, or this thing just hammered like this, will bust grade 8 bolts. I've broken 4 bolts on, not this one, but another one. So, ram pumps, piston pumps, all kinds of pumps. There's a pump over here that runs off my rain catchment system. Of course, it's hard to demonstrate solar when the sun goes down. This is a new pump. It's a rotor pump. This thing will pump 14 gallons a minute, more than out of a spring, out of a shallow well, off a rain catchment system, any shallow water source. And it's all solar direct drive. And that gizmo right there, I'm charging. We do a lot of solar power stuff. If you're interested in solar, we do solar from small scale portable solar generators up to whole house. So we install, you run your whole house off grid, that's fine. If you want to run a few circuits, well, I was going to show, I'm actually heating water with a heat pump over here. That brown tank gets up to about 130 degrees, but I run it off of that. So not only do we move cold water and fine cold water, we do a lot of hot water things too. Wood boilers, solar hot water heating. Hot water heating is probably 30% of your power bills is your water heater. So we have ways to eliminate that using solar. And then there's contraptions for you gentlemen with your diesels. You want to make your own fuel, you can take a centrifuge and take your used motor oil, your waste motor oil, and spin it. This spins at 3,600, or what's it, 3,600? It's 3,600, I forgot how many G's this thing pulls. But this will clean oil cleaner than any filtration, no filters, it's a centrifuge. And it spins out all the gunk. But I run my Volkswagen tractor and things on a 50-50 waste motor oil and diesel mixture. But a centrifuge will clean better than any filtration system. You'll waste a lot of money on filters, but this baby will do it. Now I do heat it, I preheat it with solar, and preheat. If you get the oil at 150 degrees, it's super clean. It just spins all the contaminants out of it. And then you can burn straight motor oil. You'll kill every mosquito in Pickens County. That's why you should cut it with some diesel fuel so you don't get in trouble. But if you want to make your own fuel, you can. And if you want to get crazy, you can run all your stuff on wood. That's what this is out here. Or just let me know. This contraption, I don't know if you've seen one of these before. This was big in World War II, running vehicles off of wood. This will turn any hickory. I use white oak and hickory to run gas engines. I got a 30,000 watt generator that runs off of wood. And you can run any gas motor off of wood. It's kind of fun. If you like to tinker, a gasifier is your thing. It's combustion, filtration, and cooling, and then filtration before you hit your carburetor. You have to build your own. Your carburetors are real simple. It's 50% air, 50% wood gas. But using good hardwood, dry, you can run any motor. It's awesome when you can fire up a old 6-cylinder engine and run it. This will run for 2 hours, and I can make 40,000 watts of electricity and dump it back on Blue Ridge. But anyway, that's just fun stuff. Why is the chicken coop open, Rebecca? Always something. So solar, I got solar panels here and there. I don't know what you folks do for internet. This is something new to me. I thought I'd share it with you. I'm off grid with my internet now. Glassy Mountain is over there. There's a tower on Glassy Mountain that's shooting internet to that pole, and then I relay it to my house. And it's unlimited data, so I was so excited because I've been on Verizon for a long time. They've been killing me.
How did you get to shoot it to the pole?
To the pole, see there's a receiver that's pointing at Glassy Mountain on the fire tower. This company provides all the Wi-Fi for Main Street Pickens, and they negotiated the tower space to do this. I'm the first paying customer to get internet off that mountain, and they shoot it over here and then they relay it to the house. So it's just a radio receive and then send. It's fast. It's good.
So what are you paying for?
127 a month.
127
Yeah,
a month?
but it's unlimited data. I won't tell you what I was paying through Verizon. I do a lot on the internet, a lot of YouTube stuff. I was paying $750. Yeah. So I just got a raise. We've been doing that. Wait. The ball waters, they're going down there to drink out of it. You know, part of, not telling you gentlemen anything, rotational grazing is bringing the water to your animals. And so all you got to do is, run pipes, and I love the mirror phones. There's 2 new ones there. I'm going to install over in Oconee County for a farmer, and NRCS project. So you just basically pour a pad, you bolt them down to it. You got to have about 20 foot crusher run all the way around them for erosion control. And I've got 2 of these running now. But you see the one they're poking around at it now. But they're just like installing a toilet out in the pasture. They got a little float ball in them, and you adjust it, and you don't want them too tight in the winter. They'll freeze. You want them loose a little bit. And when you have calves, you can lock the ball down and put a training bolt in it. It comes with a Mirafont, and it keeps the ball out of the way so the cows can easily drink out of them. But what's nice is no sunlight, and when it's hot out, they're just like, it's a thermos. They're so thick plastic. Water's coming through the ground, so it's very good for herd health. There's no sunlight's ever getting to that water, so the water is cold. It's cold in the summer, and it's warm in the winter to them. And it's just like a thermos, and they just seemingly drink a lot more water, and it's clean. So yes, Mama. I hear it coming in. I just push some water out. I keep them fairly loose, not just as long as. I don't want them too tight, but you don't want junk getting in there either. But behind you, this is kind of a swampy thing over here, but that's what that ram pump you saw running do. That's my automatic redneck chicken water. So that just pumps 24/7, and they come over and do that.
That's the entertainment portion of our show.
So see how they come over and they see that water and they just, yep. But that's because I don't want to come out and water my chickens every day, so they get that water pumped up by the ram pump, and it goes down. And I know it's kind of a mess, but I could pipe that away and not have it soaking there. I wanted to see if they would drink out of it and what I'd have to do to try to minimize the amount of holes. So that's kind of, I haven't seen one of these before, but it's an automatic ram pump chicken water. But patent, I don't know if that's patentable. It makes a lot of bugs and stuff out here for the chickens to eat, so it's producing protein too. that kind of ends the tour.